Hi, I'm Katie, and this is Ornamentations number 106. For today, I have finishes, starts, haul, and a holiday preview. It might still be the very end of October, but I'm really looking forward to my favorite stitching season, which is Christmas, and this is really one of my favorite times of the year. The NHL season is in full swing and all things are possible unless you are the Sharks, who are 2-7, but you know what, Mac won celebrating, he's on a roll, so Team Canada, here we come. Anyways, the weather is just how I like it. It's cooling off. We didn't really get fall here. I think we're just going straight into winter, but that's okay. I like cool temperatures and sweaters and coats, so that's all fine. And in the meantime, we are inching ever closer to Christmas stitching, and I'm just gonna start because I love it. So with that, let's start with the October finish of my 12 by 12. So I, along with some friends, are trying to stitch one Christmas ornament every month, and my October ornament, if you're interested in this, my last Flosstube episode included a full review year to date of what my progress has been on my finishes for this 12 by 12. So the October is the 2018, I just finished stitching this, I don't even know what it is. The 2018 Prairie Schooler Santa, and I did my own color take on this. It's now FFO'd, and this is my finish. This is on Legacy Linen, 38 count Wayfarer's Cloak, and it is so fun. So in place of the running stitches that are on the chart, I just used a single size 15 bead. What those are will be noted in the description. I did my fluffy sparkly Santa beards with fuzzy stuff. I have a tutorial on that, which I'll also link in the description. And then all colors used will be in the description as well. Hold please. Oh, these got really out of order. This is my full set of threads. This is the final conversion. I think it looks great. This 235T is such a winner for Santas, especially on the Wayfarer's Cloak, which really just makes it pop like crazy. So I have pulled another remnant of Wayfarer's Cloak, and I'm thinking that I'm going to do this again. Oh, sorry, that was the chart. I'm going to do this again next year, but without the rabbit, so that I can just go absolutely ham on sparkling up the snowman. Wouldn't that be fun? I'm not quite crazy enough to do another Prairie Schooler Santa back to back, so this is a next year project. I think I'm going to try and do a 12 by 12 again next year, just because I love Christmas stitching. Sorry, major tickle in the throat. Anyways, I think I was saying I love Christmas stitching, but I also love having a lot of ornaments put away, ready to go to draw on as gifts. And it also just sprinkles a little bit of my favorite stitching season throughout the year. So I may not be quite as rigid with the 12 by 12 again next year. Michelle was just saying the same thing on her most recent Flosstube. But I think I am going to do something similar-ish if you would like to join me, just with the goal of having plenty of ornaments when the next season comes around. And then that is the 2018 Prairie Schooler Santa. We're going to see this color combination and piece again, but with significantly more sequins and crystals, because you know how I roll if you're watching this channel. But very satisfied, going to put this one away. And then I also have a surprise start and finish since I saw you last, and this is the Stacy Nash Swans, a swimming badge, but just a partial. So this is my finish. And all but one of the threads actually came out of the Prairie Schooler Santa conversion. So this is just a really good example of how, if you know what you've got, you can deploy it in different ways. So I just added a bright blue Gobelins, and finishing on here isn't fabulous. We'll talk about that in a minute. Stitched this up super quickly, and then I also just frosted the tips of the feathers on the wings. So I really enjoyed doing this kind of scatter decoration on the 45 count version of Stacy Nash's gingerbread house. We saw this again last episode. And for this, I took 3 different beads. So I have a 3mm crystal bicone, a 15-0 round seed bead, and a 15-0 cut bead. And then I just kind of mixed them up. They're not in any particular order. They're meant to look random. But the kind of scattered cluster effect is really pretty, and I wanted to see if you could deploy it in a different way. Answer, yes! So for this, and the beads used will be listed in the description as well as the threads, I have a 3mm crystal bicone, color Crystal Moonlight. I have a 2mm crystal round, color Crystal Moonlight. And then I have a 15-0 cut bead. So slightly different mixture of beads, beautifully textured. And I think you could actually like go deeper into the swan with this, but I thought since I'm going to be adding something to this that I would keep it a little simple for now. And then on my finishing, this is just laced onto a padded oval cut from matte board, but I didn't cut aggressively or deeply enough. So do you see how that's folding there? That's because those cuts should be a little deeper. That's why you don't have this super smooth line around the oval. I did notice that when I was finishing, and I thought, you know, I could clean that up. But the reason I stitched this is that I want to use it to do a tutorial for you before the next episode, which will be the launch of the holiday kits. So I've had a lot of fun recently experimenting with crystal edgings on round ornaments, and these are so easy. I mean, crazy, crazy easy. You string beads on wire and you couch it down around the edge of the ornament. That is it. But I do have a few tips, so I am going to do a just quick little finishing tutorial for you on the strung crystal edging. And I needed a piece to do it on. I really like it on the oval finishes particularly. You could also do this on a round, and you could do this on a square or a rectangle, but the turns might be a little awkward. So I needed something that I could use for the finishing tutorial, and so that's why I stitched it, and that's also why it's just as a standalone and not as a full batch. I'm going to put a crystal edging on this, then add an ornament hanger, add the backing, and make this into a tiny ornament. And oh, what I was going to say is that this is exactly the point where you would want to add a crystal edging if you're doing the strung on wire style as seen here. It's when the back is still open and before you've put your hanger on. And we'll discuss all of that in the tutorial, but look for that right before the next episode. There is a lot going on with prep for the holiday kits, so that won't be right this second, but I am looking to get a finishing tutorial to you before the next episode. And one of the reasons for that is that in the coming kits, one is a combined kit for the Not Forgotten Farms Littles Cookie Claws and Little Nick. And those have an optional beading pack add-on, and you can use that in 2 ways. You can either do 2 peppermint crystal ornament hangers, and there are instructions for that in the kit materials, just FYI, or you can use the same number of beads and you can make 1 full crystal edging for a round. And the oval template that's used is also included in the kit so that you know the exact size to use with this stitch. But anyways, that's why I would like to have this up for you before the release of the holiday kits. And you know what, if you don't want a crystal edging for your ornaments, that's fine too. You can do it with all kinds of beads, but it's fun, it's easy. I've really enjoyed playing with it, so I'm going to hopefully have a tutorial coming your way quite soon. Watch for that. And with that, I want to do just a really quick look ahead to what's coming. So the holiday kits are going to launch in 2 weeks on November 11th. Tuesday morning, 8:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we're going to have a very quick holiday preview later in this episode. I am at Sampler Symposium in January. I just finished cutting all the linen for the kids this morning. I am thrilled about that. Can you see my grin? And then the Damascene Rose class, which is the piece right behind me, we talked about that last episode. It begins February 1st. And then the first Flosstube kit of the new year in 2026 will be Let Love Grow in time for Valentine's Day. And I hope to have an FFO for that to show you next time, because I realized kind of belatedly that I don't actually have every single crystal ever made, and that I did not have what I wanted to use on the finish. So I've ordered them, and hopefully they'll be here in time for next time. I'll be able to show you the finish on that. I will also be releasing the sparkler sticks from this year's summer school later in 2026 in time for the 250th anniversary. And I've opened an interest list, which is linked in the description for this episode, to help me know what I should be planning for on the number of kits for these. I am only going to do the full kits once. The booklets are going to be in full release so that you can use different materials, or if you're a beater who has stash that you'd like to use, absolutely go for it. So it's not kit or nothing, but the full kit will include the booklet and everything that's needed for the full set of 3 as seen here, except for a hot glue gun. Now, please do note that these are reasonably expensive, and I do have projective pricing in the link as well, and that's due to both price increases on the materials and just the amount of labor that goes into making these kits. So have a think about if you want them, sign up if you do, and then link is in the description. I really look forward to sharing these crazy fun, crazy easy things. And you know, the other thing is that these are endlessly adaptable, and I really look forward to seeing what the creative people who watch this channel can do with the general concept. Some easy variations would be team colors for favorite sports and teams, or you could also do these for other holidays. You could do a black and orange set for Halloween to go in your dough bowl, for example. So sparkler sticks will be coming. If you are interested in a full kit, please sign up with your email at the link in the description. And then we're going to go to my last current active whip. I am going to have some new starts before I see you again, and that is my mystery sampler. Not really earth-shattering progress on this, I have to admit, but I am pleased with where this is going. So since I saw you last, I did close the border around the bottom, and I didn't just keep on going and then turn. What I did was I worked all the way to about here, and then I counted very carefully from the grass on this side because I wanted everything to be lined up correctly. And then I came down, I made the turn, and thankfully they met up. But I knew, since I wanted everything to be in position relative to the grass, that I'd rather fudge it here than get up here and realize that I wasn't in the correct place. That'd be very schoolgirl accurate, but oh, I do like correctly counted borders. I did add a few more berries, and for next time I'm hoping to fill those out on the border structure that I do have. They're quite vibrant, and I think they're really going to just brighten up this whole section, which is currently dominated by a lot of green. I finished the outline of one of the parterres, and I have continued to just slightly pull down the grass around them. I haven't had a ton of time for this piece, unfortunately. It's been pretty busy around here. And added a little more to the outline of the second parterre. I am going to keep going on those, keep filling in grass, working on the border, and then from there, I think instead of going straight to filling in the parterres, I am going to add the trees around the house before I decide exactly how I fill in the parterres. I want to do flowers. I'm kind of thinking tulips would be fun. I definitely need some curves in here to work against the very linear, very symmetrical form that I've got going currently. So I'd like to get a little more of a visual picture of how the design is developing before I commit to. I pretty much know what I want the form to look like, but what's the color? Are the tulips red and white? Are they pink? Are they red? Are they yellow? I think I'm gonna know a little better once I have a little more up here. And then this is the back. This is being stitched on 48 count legacy linen bride cake with Swosserfine. As usual, I'm trying to keep everything quite neat. So I'm going to keep going on my mystery sampler, which still doesn't have a name and won't have any earth-shattering progress since I see you last, because Christmas stitching, it's really going to be my focus, as well as getting everything ready for you for the holiday kits, which also brings me to a little bit of haul that I had. So Not Forgotten Farm just completely has my number, knows what I like, and has designed and released 2 new holiday themed littles. So this is Chris Mouse. Oh, is he so cute or what? Are you dead? I'm dead. And Cheerful Giver. Fabulous. So I already know I'm going to be stitching these multiple times. I'm going to have a great time with them. I think it'd be great to do these on 38 count with Gobelins. I would also love to do some tiny versions. They'd be really small on 45 count. And this one, I think you could stitch him on 38 count, stitch this on 53, and then maybe hang it from the hanger or hanging close to it. I'll try it out and see what works. So I have some different color ideas on these, since I know I have some friends waiting for my thoughts on that. And that's that one version of Chris Mouse needs to have Gobelins 779, because if there is a single perfect Christmas red, this is it. Absolutely fabulous. That would look great. But I also think you could do a kind of darker, moodier version of this on gray linen with a very dark, rich color. This is Gobelins 2646, so I'm looking forward to experimenting with that. And then on Cheerful Giver, same thing. 2646 would be a beautiful combination with the green I know I definitely want to use, and that's Gobelins 707. But there's also an argument to be made for a brighter red in combination with that. Not 779, I think 945 would be the pick. All Gobelins. So I'm gonna start rooting through my linen remnants, since these are really quite small. Stitch count is 63 by 66 and 36 by 58. So really they're tiny, which is fabulous, because quick, easy, fun Christmas stitches. I'm going to do some different variations. I'm going to have some fun with sparkle, and get ready. You're going to be seeing a lot of these. So I hope that's appealing, because otherwise, sorry, I'm really looking forward to them. And then that brings me to a very quick holiday preview, since the kits will be in release for next time. So headline news is that the Crystal Doves are making their last flight. They're coming back. I have a full kit run. There are a lot of kits in stock, but this is truly and absolutely the last time I'm going to do this, because the bugles in these are vintage and I've reached the end of the dead stock I was able to get on these. The size is no longer made, so that's a limiting factor here. They are in a slightly different packaging this time, because just due to price increases, the cost of the materials in the kit did go up. However, I know a lot of you have been waiting very, very, very patiently for these to come back. I did not want to stick you with a price increase, so I just changed the packaging up a little. I cut my margin a little bit, and so these are going to be offered at the original price, which is $60 per dove, and just in a bag with a label instead of a nice fancy box. But what's inside is the same. The tile beads, which are these square ones, have a slightly different finish on them, but I have used them on a dove before. I don't think you're going to notice the difference too much. So Crystal Doves coming next time. And then the other kit that is going to be in full release is one kit for the combined pair of Little Nick and Cookie Claws, which were the littles from Not Forgotten Farm last year. So this is an original silk conversion, and it includes everything but the charts, which you must provide. They have the same threads for both, which is why this is one kit, two different charts. Not normally something I do, but I just couldn't resist. So you have two pieces of Fuller's Teasel to stitch the two ornaments. You have two pieces of the coordinating Duchess silk satin for the backing, and then you have everything else you need. You have the alternate oval template if you'd like to do an oval finish of these with or without the crystal edging. And then in the standard kit, you have your full thread pack, which is mostly a mix of Gobelins and 103, but also includes a fabulous metallic called Bijou. So in place of most of the Blanc here, I've actually got this great sparkly metallic. Does not come through on camera at all. There's also the fuzzy stuff that's used for the sparkly, fluffy beads and hair on Little Nick and Cookie Claws, as well as the large chenille needle that I recommend using with it. There is a floss drop with two 18-inch cuts of the dark gray 103 that's used just for those straight stitches and a stitch on the beads that are the eyes. And then in every kit there is a very small little bead pack, which are the 2mm crystal rounds used for decoration, and then the seed beads that are used for the eyes on both figures. She also has one little crystal for the holly berry in her hair. So the base kit is $62, and that covers both charts, as I said, although you do need to provide the charts. Those are included. And then on a limited number of kits, there's also an optional beading pack. This doesn't look like much, but it's a lot of discontinued oval crystals and then red 3mm rounds, and so it's $98 with the optional beading pack. And what the beading pack will do is, as I said earlier in this episode, either make two peppermint crystal hangers, and they are so sparkly, they look amazing on a tree, or one full round edging. So I hope you'll enjoy Little Nick and Cookie Claws. These were some of my favorite stitches from last year. If you were watching the channel during the holiday episodes last year, I did these multiple times. They made great gifts, but as you can see, I did keep 3 of them for myself, and not just because they're the models for this kit, because I stinking love them and they're fabulous. Oh, and I can't tell you how much I love the crystal edging. Details on the crystals are also included in all of the kits. If you don't get a crystal beading pack, you can still add that to your own finish. Sources, numbers, and what each of these things are included. So in your written guide to the conversion that's in the kit, there is a link to a private web page on my website, and there are some extra finishing photos. There are photographs of some of the alternate colorways I tried. If you'd like to do some color experimentation, there's the link to all of the crystals used, and then there's just a really quick little how-to on doing just a strong beaded hanger. Really easy. Spoiler alert, double your thread on the crystals, tie it off securely, you're good, the end. So easy. So I hope you will enjoy Little Nick and Cookie Claws and the Crystal Doves, which are the holiday kits for this year, and they will be on sale on Tuesday, November 11th. I really hope that is Tuesday. It's the Tuesday, and if I've got the date wrong, which I might, I don't even know what day it is, quite frankly, then that should be scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now, I hope. And also just a few quick updates on classes. So the Damascene Rose, which is my new embroidery class, launched last time, still has places available. I hope you will join us. Full details are in the last episode, and I'm not going to bore you with the whole spiel again, but I did want to talk briefly about inspiration as it relates to the Damascene Rose and from my piece that this was inspired by. This is an interpretation of the interior of the lid of my green casket, and that in turn was inspired by a historic piece that was featured in an exhibition in England many years ago in 2015 to 2016. So the exhibition was called Plots and Spangles. I didn't see it, but I did very kindly get sent the exhibition book, and some friends shared photos with me. Wish I had seen it. It was amazing. And it's called The Embroidered Vestments of Helena Wintour. And Helena Wintour was kind of an interesting person. She was related to one of the protagonists in the Guy Fawkes gunpowder plot and suffered a lot of social ostracism. She was also a Catholic and very religious, so she kind of withdrew from society and made beautiful ecclesiastical vestments. And truly, she was a woman after my own heart, because Festival of Sparkle. Also really beautiful, gorgeous work. If you ever have a chance to get the book or see pictures of the exhibition pieces or see them live, I'm not actually sure where they're normally housed. Definitely do. So my roses came from a piece called the Bodenham Chalice Veil. I'm sure I'm not saying that right, but this is the full piece. The photograph really doesn't do it justice, but if we go closer into a corner, you might see roses. And if you can get access to a good close-up photo, I don't think it's really visible here, they're all edged in this beautiful glittering metal scallop trim. Thistle Threads made that not long after I got this book. It was in one of their frostings boxes, which is why you never miss a Thistle Threads frostings box. You never know what amazing one-off thread will be in it that you'll never see again. And I used the silver scallop trim to make the roses that you see here. It's always been one of my favorite pieces, and so when I turned to teaching, I pleaded with Trisha to have a new run of scallop trim, but I wanted to do a different color interpretation. Green, gold, and pink has always been one of my favorite color combinations, so that was where I went with the rose. And so we had gilt scallop trim, which is so crazy sparkly. Unfortunately, the camera really doesn't do it justice, but you'll have to take my word for it. Really crazy sparkly, especially made for this class, along with some other threads. So this piece is really taken 3 different forms. There's the original historic inspiration that started it all. There's my casket panel that was my first exploration of this idea, and then there's the most compressed version, the Damascene Rose, although there is also an alternate template provided to expand this into a full casket panel if you have one and are so inclined. So full details on the Damascene Rose are on my website or in the last Flosstube. Both are linked in the description, and I hope you will consider joining us. This is my personal favorite of the class pieces that I have offered so far, and it's a piece that's very near and dear to my heart. And then also running right now is the Britomart Sampler class. Kits and places in the class still available, and also whether or not you're stitching this, I hope you'll check out at Britomart Sampler on Instagram. Again, that'll be noted in the description as well, because there's a lot of student progress. It's under reposts, and you guys are doing an amazing job. It's so inspiring. And there is also one stitcher, Becca Galloway. Her handle is at Bexy Stitches. She has stitched the Britomart Sampler once reversibly already on her own, and then she joined the class. She's stitching it again, and she's doing a totally different color interpretation, which is just amazing to see. Again, going with the Damascene Rose, how does a piece change with just some color with just some subtle color shifts. Ooh, I can't talk. And it's a beautiful, beautiful exploration of that. It's also, as a teacher and designer, really inspiring to see. So I hope you'll check it out. There's amazing work being done. The second lesson is currently available. We do have some students currently working through the second band. Becca has already finished it. She is just pacing everybody, but fabulous progress, and I hope you'll check it out. It's been really inspiring for me to see, and I hope inspiring for many of you in the class as well. So I do have a fabulous little giveaway for you at the very end of this episode, but before we get there, I wanted to finish with a conversation on documenting your work, and this is prompted by the Curious Crafter's most recent Flosstube, number 78, which I'm going to link in the description, and which you should really watch if you haven't already, in which they shared what they do in documenting their work, what they hope to do, why they do it, and what their goals are. That was a really interesting discussion for me because this is something that's much on my mind. They also invited their viewers to comment, so there are some great responses from other stitchers about what do they do and what's their thought process behind it. But I thought I would share with you a little bit about my own process. What do I write down about my work, and more importantly, why? So I'm very analog. There were a lot of digital methods discussed, both in their video and in the comments, but I don't do that. I do have tons and tons of digital photo albums in which I organize inspiration material, but for the most part, I work on paper. I feel a real connection by using a pen on paper, and so that's how I choose to document things. The kind of touchstone of my daily life in documenting my work is what I like to call my bench book. This is just a ruled moleskin journal in which I write down everything I do in my creative life from day to day, and some of that are just the workings of my business, so that I cut X number of pieces of linen for this, that, or the other kit, as well as all of the stitching I did that day. Was I designing a project? What was I doing on that? So that takes a very free-form version for me, because really, like, what kind of bullet points those take up really varies from day to day. But this is what I answer to on a daily basis, and I really like it because it helps keep me accountable. At the end of the day, I have to tell this what I did, and I really hope it adds up to something productive. And so this isn't really journaling as in emotions or feelings or thoughts. It's a literal itemized list. What did I do today? And then I also have documenting on specific projects. So there are files for original projects. Each one gets its own file folder in which I note the general title and the date. So this is my current project, which we haven't seen in a while, my poor short flat casket. So when I start it, I put the starting date, and then when I finish it, I put the ending date. You'll note that there is no ending date, and the starting date there is just sad. This poor project has been very start-stop. So this is where I keep most everything. Some inspiration materials, my working drafts, my final line drawings, and then my notes on technique. So one thing I like to do for my embroidery projects, sorry, I'm not prepared. I'm not sure where this disappeared to. Okay, found an example of what I was looking for. So I'll have my final line drawing, and this is my tracing drawing. So a lot of elements that are going to be done in raised stitches don't appear. But then that also has an overlay. I like to draft on tracing paper just because it's really easy to revise. And so I have just a blank piece of tracing paper that I lay over it, and that's where I make all of my notes on both threads and techniques used, because it is both shocking and amazing how quickly these things get fuzzy, because I can't tell you how many times I've gone back and looked at something on casket stitching. It wasn't that long ago. I'm like, oh, I really like what I did there. I'd like to do that again. What is that? I have no idea. So that's how I came to using this. So this is a project file, and as I said, they're dated and they're signed. Every draft where it's an original thing that I've produced, I also sign with my cipher and the date so that it's a complete record of the project. And then for some projects, again, like my current one, the flat casket, I also have a combination sketchbook and inspiration book. I've showed this one before, and that's where I compile my inspiration photos as well as my notes about how they inspire me. I'll mark things I know I need to return to often, and then I'll do little sketches. These tend to be when I have a lot of disparate ideas that I'm trying to pull together into a single coherent piece where I can just flip through all of my thoughts at once and try and wrestle them into a coherent whole. If it's a little more compressed, then I'll just print out a couple photos, lay them out on my file, and that's what I'm thinking. And in that case, they'll go in the eventual project folder. And then we have the documentation that you leave behind on projects. And whether or not you want to record anything about your work, your process, your working methods, or your day-to-day, documentation on your projects is something that I strongly advocate every stitch or do, no matter the project and no matter how small, and whether or not you think anyone will ever care about it. Please leave behind your name and also the date. The work of your hands really deserves a record, whether you think it does or not. One of the things that's really both fascinating and frustrating about 17th century casket stitchers is that for the most part, with only a very few exceptions, we don't know who they were. Very few of them have survived with the name of the girl who stitched them, so both the object and the maker are almost entirely unknowable, and that's so infinitely frustrating because we would love to know all about these girls, and you never know what someone in the future might want to know about you. I know we have some casket stitchers who do watch this channel, and you know better than anyone that a casket is an enormous project, which, having done two myself, can confirm. So for all of that to go down in history, all that work, all that inspiration, all that amazing creativity as anonymous is both heartbreaking and a lesson that we can all learn from. So every major finish of mine has a label made by me, literally affixed to the piece, because if it's glued on, it can't be separated. Another lesson we have learned from history. And at a minimum, it has the name and the date, and usually also something that points to the inspiration behind the piece. And that frequently is the literary quote that started the whole thing for like my mirrors and my caskets, since so many of my pieces have literary origins. This is the Simple Harmony box. And so the label is Simple Harmony, the title of the project, something about the inspiration, plain, but of the best sort. So both Quakers, and also that the association between plainness and Quakers is sometimes misinterpreted. Yes, they valued plainness, but they did also frequently use luxury materials. And then my name. The year is not on the label because it's actually on the box with my initials. And you know, I don't know, maybe that was a mistake, and in the future they're going to misread it and not know that this was the year of completion. Yeah, not really a place on here to add the year. That would have to be a separate label. But so that's one example of a signature on a project. And this is really easy for framed pieces because you can just slap it on the back. Stitched pieces are a little more difficult, and in fairness, I don't do this on like all my ornaments and stuff. I have a friend who yells at me about that, by the way. But all of my stitched pieces, my soft pieces, I have taken to doing stitched finishes as well. This is going to be really hard to see because it's tone on tone, but in my sweet bag, I have left behind a stitched signature, which is my cipher, what I sign my work with when I've got a full label on a casket or whatever. Ooh, that was a good. Oh, that's a good shot of how crazy sparkly this gold is. Check that out. Gorgeous. Anyways, sign something. Oh yeah, it's on a lot of my labels. It's on all of the sketches that we've documented. I sign it in my bench book. That is really my signature, is my ciphered initials. It's how I sign all of my work, and so I've taken to putting that on stitched pieces as well. On things that aren't original, so like Simple Harmony, the application to a box was an original idea, but the pattern itself is actually, this is Modern Folk Embroidery's Forget-Me-Not pattern. So that did not get my cipher because that was not an original design. I still signed my name both on the label and then put my initials on the back of the piece itself, but it didn't get my cipher, and that's what denotes that this was stitched but not designed by me. So that's a personal distinction that can or cannot have meaning for you. So I hope you'll think about claiming your work and leaving behind a record of what you've done with your hands, because you really don't know who's going to care in the future. This is something that we've talked about on this channel before, but I thought it was a great time to have this conversation again because, one, I think it can't be said too often. The lesson of the 17th century casket stitchers teaches us that, but also because the Curious Crafters had a really great thought-provoking discussion about what they've done in the past, what they think they're going to do going forward, and it was very inspiring. So I'd urge you to go and check out their episode if they haven't watched it already. That's Curious Crafters number 78, and there's a link in the description as well. So those are my extended musings. Sorry about that. I hope it was interesting, or if it wasn't interesting, that you have fast forwarded to this point, which is the giveaway that I have for today. So the Pearl Basket needle minder from Jackie Duplessis was unclaimed, and we're going to have a new draw for this. The keyword is going to be the same as last time, basket. Please use that in your comment, and I do have to regretfully request that this be US only, please, because I'm not entirely certain about export restrictions on natural products. Or if you've got a mailing address in the US, that's fine. So keyword basket for the Mother of Pearl needle minder from Jackie Duplessis, which comes in a very secure little case, so it should travel to you in good order. And then that does bring me to the close of this episode. So for next time, we have the official holiday kickoff. Before I see you next time, by the way, there should be the tutorial on adding a strong crystal edging to an oval finish. And so back to what I was saying though, official holiday kickoff, because you can never have too much Christmas in my world, and it can never start too early. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to be doing holiday stitching. Holiday kits will be launching. We have little Nick and Cookie Claws, as well as the return of the Crystal Dove. And as I said, I'm going to be on my holiday stitching in earnest. I have some fun new ideas for some original embellished wool appliques. So I hope all of lots to show, and I hope that you'll join me. I'll see you again in 2 weeks, and until then, happy stitching.